So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Canada's Justin Trudeau cites internal battles as he ends 9-year run because he's probably the most authoritarian head of state that has ever existed in Canadian history. Because we remember what he did during COVID, we remember what he did with the truckers and freezing their bank accounts and getting everybody fired from their jobs and calling, basically just hating 50% of his population. The guy was a tyrant. I'm extremely glad he's gone. Under growing pressure from his own party, because that's the same thing that happened to Hamza Yusuf. Basically, the person became so disliked that they knew that come next election, they were going to get slaughtered. They were going to get slaughtered next election. So basically, the party surrounded them and went, quit. You will quit. Like, we are going to lose the next election if you are still in power because you are just that bad. Quit. So basically, he was, did he jump or was he pushed? He was probably pushed. Stepped down and end his 9-year stretch as leader. Trudeau says that he would stay on in office until his Liberal Party can choose a new leader and that Parliament would be prologued or suspended until 24th of March. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election, he said during a press conference on Monday. Would he be allowed to run again? Hasn't he already been voted in twice? I don't know how it works in Canada. I've no idea how it works in Canada. I'll need to double check that. Trudeau's personal unpopularity with Canadians has become an increasing drag on his party's fortunes in advance of federal elections later this year. Last night, over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today, he told the news conference in Ottawa. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust nationwide competitive process, he said. The president of the Liberal Party, Sachin Mehra, said a meeting of the party's board of directors would be held this week to begin the process of selecting a new leader. In a statement, he added, Liberals across the country are immensely grateful to Justin Trudeau for more than a decade of leadership to our party and the country. The guy's a tyrant. He was a tyrant. He didn't give the tiniest shit about human rights. He didn't care. He hated them, in fact, because they stood in the way of his plan. Like many other leaders around the world. Blah, pesky human rights. Getting in the way of me controlling everybody and all their banking transactions and all their food. I want to buy all the farms and I want to nationalise absolutely everything. So that means that if you do anything that the government doesn't like, we can just stop you from accessing any and all services. So you have to obey. It's a fucking joke, man. As Prime Minister, his vision delivered transformational progress for Canadians. I love how it just said, transformational progress. Yeah, absolutely. They didn't say whether or not it was good, though, did they? He said, citing programmes his government has implemented, like the Canada Child Benefit and the establishment of dental care and pharmacare coverage for some medication, which is why taxes in Canada are sky high. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said nothing has changed following Trudeau's resignation. Every Liberal MP and leadership contender supported everything Trudeau did for 9 years, and now you want to trick voters by swapping in another Liberal face to keep ripping off Canadians for another 4 years, just like Justin Poilievre wrote on X. Now, Poilievre, I don't know how you pronounce his name, I like him. See, ever since I saw that video of him eating an apple talking to a journalist, I like him. Trudeau, 53, had faced growing calls to quit from inside his Liberal Party. I'm very sorry if I keep doing this, by the way. I think I've got a hair up my nose because I keep getting tickled up my bloody nose. And calls to quit from inside his Liberal Party, which ramped up in December when Deputy Prime Minister and longtime ally Chrystia Freeland abruptly resigned. In a public resignation letter, Freeland cited US President-elect Donald Trump's threats of tariffs on Canadian goods and accused Trudeau of not doing enough to address the grave challenge posed by Trump's proposals. Trump has promised to impose a tax of 25% on imported Canadian goods, which economists have warned would significantly hurt Canada's economy, unless the country takes steps to increase security on its shared border. Trudeau said Monday that he had hoped Freeland would have continued as Deputy Prime Minister, but she chose otherwise. Canada has since announced that it will implement sweeping new security measures along the country's US border in response to the threat. In an online post, Trump claimed that pressure over tariffs led to Trudeau's resignation and repeated his jibe that Canada should become the 51st state. I mean, it would certainly be an improvement. If Canada merged with the US, there would be no tariffs, taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of the Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them, he wrote. Since 2019, the Liberal Party has governed as a minority party. Following Freeland's resignation, Trudeau lost the backing of parties that had previously helped keep Liberals in power. The left-leaning New Democrats, who had a support agreement with the Liberals, and the Quebec Nationalist Party, Bloc Québécois. Was that right? I've no idea. Don't care enough to find out. The largest opposition party, the Conservatives, have maintained a significant two-digit lead over the Liberals in polls for months, suggesting that if a general election were held today, the Liberals could be in for a significant defeat, and it's about time Canada had some actual leadership instead of just some fucking tyrant. Liberals will now choose a new leader to take the party into the next election, which must be held on or before 20th of October. A senior government official told the BBC that the race is an open contest and that the Prime Minister's office will fully stay out of the process, leaving it to Liberal Party members to decide their future. Speaking to reporters, the Bloc Québécois leader, Yves-François Blanchet, look at me learning French, suggested that an early election be called once the Liberals choose their new leader. End of the Trudeau era, thank God. Trudeau is the son of Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Is he? Okay. Who dominated the country's politics in the 1970s and 80s. The younger Trudeau became Prime Minister after the Liberal Party won a sweeping majority in 2015, amid a promise to usher in a new progressive era of sunny ways. Definitely. Definitely. You seen Canada lately? A lot of it's starting to look like LA. His record includes a commitment to gender equality in his cabinet. Woo! Yay! What about homelessness and poverty? You know, but it's fine. We now have 50% vaginas in Parliament. Yay! Well, people are lying dead in the street of fentanyl overdoses. Progress on reconciliation with Indigenous people in Canada. Oh, well, can't help it if your ancestors were bad at war. Bringing in a national carbon tax, implementing a tax-free child benefit for families, and legalising recreational cannabis. Ooh! Look, I'll admit, weed should in fact be legal, but, right now, I would love weed to be legal in Scotland. However, the government has bigger fucking things to worry about. That we have much bigger problems than that. Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepinak praised Trudeau's track record on Indigenous issues following his resignation, saying in a statement that he has taken meaningful steps to address the issues that matter to First Nations. While much work remains, these actions have laid a foundation for future governments to build upon. Clouds began to hang over Trudeau's government in recent years, which weathered a series of often self-inflicted scandals, including controversy over a deal with a Canadian firm facing corruption charges, and photos that emerged of the Prime Minister wearing brown-face makeup prior to his time in politics. That is not true. It was not brown-face, it was blackface, man. Guy was midnight. Lean him up against a building in a street and he'd look like an alleyway. Like, he was black. Like, Wesley Snipes. I'm just saying. Vaccine mandates and other restrictions were also met with fierce backlash by some Canadians. That was a lot. Leading to the Freedom Convoy truck protests in early 2022, Trudeau eventually used unprecedented emergency powers to remove the protesters. And he also froze their bank accounts and got lots of them fired. Because he's a tyrant. As Canada began to emerge from the pandemic, housing and food prices skyrocketed, and his government pulled back on ambitious immigration targets as public services began to show strain. By late 2024, Trudeau's approval rating was at its lowest, just 22% of Canadians saying that they thought he was doing a good job, according to one polling tracker. In Ottawa, a small group of protesters danced outside Parliament Hill in celebration of his resignation. One passerby, however, said he thinks things are fine under Trudeau's watch. I'm a carpenter, Himes Gamara, who's from British Columbia, told the BBC, I mind my own business, I get my wages, I pay the bills, it's been okay. Well, your bills are much higher thanks to Trudeau. Another Canadian, Maurice Cassivi, said it feels like the end of an era. Asked if she feels any hints of sadness, she replied, no, it's the right thing. I'm happy he's gone. This is a net benefit for Canada. He was a tyrant. He was a tyrant that grew far too big for his boots. You could see it in him. You could see the stuff he was saying, the things that he was doing. He was getting there. He was taking after dear old dad, you might say. Right, but I mean, look at the pictures of them side to side. Like it's him. It's just him. But anyway, it is a good thing that Trudeau is now gone, and it looks like the Conservatives are actually going to win at the next election. So Canada might be able to finally uncuck itself.